Hey everybody, welcome back to Pixel Opinions. Today we are talking about the movie Venom. We just checked it out in the theater. We're a little bit late on this one, so prior to seeing it there was already kind of a lot of negative feedback coming out. Our opinions might be a little bit biased, but at the same time maybe it works against it. So lot to unravel on this one. Where do you guys want to start? Like characters, CGI, plot, lore accuracy?
I guess the easiest thing to start with is probably just overall feelings on like the story and lore. So like they took some liberties.
Well, I mean, I will say this, and you know, part of it might be that I had low expectations going in because everybody was saying it was bad, was that the story wasn't that bad unless you were looking for something true to the lore.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you could get away from, you know, like the animated series, the comic books before it, you know, any level of lore that you know about the origin and the development of Venom, because it's probably one of the least accurate superhero movies that I can remember from lore. The plot is okay.
Yeah.
It's just that it's its own unique plot.
It didn't feel like a Venom movie.
No.
It didn't feel like a superhero movie. To be honest, the entire time I was watching it, I was sort of thinking it was like the latest
Generic sci-fi?
It was like the latest Fantastic Four movie. It was a science fiction movie. It wasn't a superhero movie. It didn't feel like it was in the Marvel universe, which was another thing, is that like you have all these Marvel movies coming out that are all linked.
Yeah.
And they all have sort of a similar feel to them. This one feels nothing like it. You can't expect it to be a Marvel movie or a superhero movie. It's a science fiction movie.
Well, and I mean, when I said, you know, don't expect the lore from the show, the comics, I think that also goes with the overall Marvel cinematic universe and what they've been doing with Spider-Man so far, because this doesn't feel like a character that they could drop into the Marvel universe and make it fit. Like, it just...
Well,
I can't see any
try
angle
and do
work.
that a little bit before, right?
But let's try... I mean, we went to see a movie. We didn't go to see if it fit into the greater scheme of things. How was it as a movie? Plot, I mean, there was a plot. It flowed decently. It made sense.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of it, especially towards the tail end, was really on fast forward.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
I can see that. Yeah.
Like the beginning of the movie, it felt like a really long... Like they did a great job developing the character, who I don't want to call Eddie Brock, because it didn't feel like Eddie Brock
Very different,
at all. But it was a character that I liked.
Yes.
Right? And I will say this right now, even if we get to characters later, I did very much like Tom Hardy's performance.
I love Tom Hardy.
It was the highlight of the movie to me. But at the beginning, it was a very long character development period with Eddie Brock, and it felt like it took forever to get into the actual Venom stuff.
Yeah.
And then the later parts, like especially the final act with the big confrontation and the resolution, seemed to go really fast.
Yeah.
I think a big part of that is how slow the first part went. Like the pacing was way off, right? You have so much slow development early on. And sure, you had a couple scenes scattered around that had a little bit of action, a little bit of this and that, but it was all basically shoved into the last part, and it makes the pacing feel really bad. It also makes it, again, it makes it feel like a sci-fi movie, or like almost like Alien or Predator or something like that, where the first chunk is you're building it up, and the last chunk is you're dealing with the scary thing that's out there. And that's a big part of what made it feel not anything like a superhero movie to me.
I didn't mind that. Like that didn't bother me. Like there's no problem with the pacing from my point of view.
I'm with Alex on the pacing one.
You don't like the pacing?
No, well, I mean, what they did was well done. The character development was well done, but there was too much of it. The action that we had, at least some of it, especially to me, without going into any sort of spoilers, the scene on the motorcycle with the chase, you know, it was well done, but there wasn't enough of it. I think it was poorly done balancing, and that did hurt the pacing. Because at the beginning I was like, okay, let's get to... I mean, I came into a movie called Venom, not a movie called Eddie Brock. Let's get to that part. And then when we got it, which, you know, there were better or worse, which, I was enjoying, was then over very quickly.
I guess for me it didn't bother me because I've seen some other movies that develop characters like that, especially when you have a character that is not like just a good guy, right? This is like a token villain in some universes, and then maybe anti-hero at the closest, you know?
Well, I mean, generally the only time he really does good things are more self-preservation.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And I thought they were going to hint on that a little bit more, which they did a little bit, but again...
It was at the end.
Very fast, very quick, and it's just like, okay, you know, like, the character's change of heart on how he looks at things, and if he's going to be a villain or a hero, just, it was a flick of a light switch.
Yeah, I guess for me it was that if someone didn't know the universe, then who is Eddie Brock? And I feel that they did a good job with telling us who Eddie Brock was, at least their version of Eddie Brock.
Well, because that's, like I said from the very start, everything they did was fine,
yeah.
It's just they definitely did their own thing. You know, they could have had it a different character and not even be a Venom movie and just have an alien entity, you know, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
It's just that if you are going to give those characters those names, those universes, those abilities and powers, you kind of build a bit of an expectation that it's going to follow some suit on what you know it to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's...
But again, overall, I had no problem with the plot. I just had a problem with its pacing and balance.
Sure.
One big criticism going into the movie was the CGI. Where did you guys fall on that one?
I just thought it was fine. I didn't have any issue with it.
Yeah, it didn't stand out the way that some of the just amazing stuff we've been seeing from Marvel lately has. But it didn't feel like it was terrible. Like,
Yeah.
there weren't too many times where I thought, oh, what are they doing? Like, why does that look that awful? Like, everything looked like it belonged there.
Well, the only thing that looked awful was Venom. And don't get me wrong, from like a technology standpoint, he looked okay.
Yeah.
But not having the white spider on his chest and just
yeah.
having him as this black blob of symbiote really bothered me because I'm like, you know, there's very little you can do with Venom's, like, it's all black.
He is a
with the
black
white-
blob.
Like, it's,
Like,
yeah,
that's what
right?
he is, right?
So the white spider on his chest, and again, that might be them getting away from their connections to the universe, is one of the few things that gives him a little bit more of a personality or a flair to his look. And not having it, it's like, you just have the eyes, the teeth, and then, like, this blob that kind of moves around and morphs.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, this is tough to look at. Give him some...
See,
Pizzazz.
I mean, okay.
He didn't...
Going away from...
He didn't... This is your favorite term. He didn't pop.
Oh my god. I mean, as much as, like, okay, the symbolism and having the spider symbol and stuff like that, whatever, I could care less. I feel that, like, the transitions between, like, Eddie Brock and Venom and, like, the use of powers and stuff actually looked really good. I can't complain about that. And even like, the other symbiotes, like, using, like, moving around and stuff like that, like, that looked really well done. It felt like it matched well. Like, I don't feel like it was out of place.
Yeah, I thought the look of, like, the symbiotes looked really good, and the way the symbiote, like, interacted with the environment, like, whether it was clinging to a wall or clinging to objects and bringing them in, stuff like that, it looked pretty natural to me.
Yeah.
It was just.
I mean, that's it. Like, I think the CGI actually was very good. I can't see people's complaints.
I don't know if I would say it was really good. Because, yes, if you do compare it to some of what technology is doing right now, it wasn't amazing.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't hurting the movie in any way, like some people would have had us believe going into it, right? Well, I mean, I did touch on Tom Hardy's performance, and I think he did a great job. You know, it was his voice as Venom, you know, talking to himself and just changing his voice, and, you know, like, I think it was well done. But what did you think of the other characters?
Well, I kind of thought he was a little bit too much of a loser for too long. And I mean, I get that that's what they were going for, but I kind of remember him being like a tough football player type.
He was a muscle-bound kind of guy.
Like,
Well, I think they hinted at it that he was like a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
You know, even just going to his first meeting at the beginning of the movie, he's flying down the street on his motorcycle. But yes, he didn't have the same physical toughness. It was just he was almost like a rebel, like he was an outsider.
I mean, his character overall, I mean, yeah, okay, it's not the same Eddie Brock that some people picture, But it's not like they did him too bad. Like, he was still a reporter, which is true to the story.
Yeah.
I actually like that part of it, but what I really wanted to see it was like, especially with the direction they were taking the character, that he was like, like one of those Gen X YouTube news reporters not working for a network, right? Which, to me, I'm going into something that completely doesn't matter for the movie, but I'm like, what network is going to put this on? Like, they didn't clash.
I don't know.
I'm getting off topic.
Thinking of it, it wasn't too bad. Like, it did feel a little bit like that, like almost like Rebel Media as opposed to like a
but what network puts Rebel Media on? I mean, right? Like, and I would have thought that that's what he should have been, not prior to going into it or anything, but the way they were building the character up at the beginning. I'm like, the Eddie Brock show that they show at the beginning is something that he does on like YouTube and has a huge following, but then he goes to a network to do a meeting, and I'm like, what? No, like
I was expecting him to be much more of a jerk, to be honest, to everyone, basically, and he really wasn't. He actually kind of seemed...
He was too nice of a guy.
he kind of seemed a little too nice, a little bit too much of like a good guy, which also made it so that like over the entire movie, he felt more like a good guy and less like a villain / anti-hero. And I didn't really like that.
See, but like, okay, the tough part there is like, where did they build the hatred? Because I mean, Eddie Brock's hatred is strictly based off of like Spider-Man and the network, right? Like,
but they got there no Spider-Man, no New York, like you hear at the beginning that it's Jameson in the spacecraft, right? J. Jonah's son, like it usually is in the lore, but like they got away from it entirely.
So his like motivation for hatred was self-hatred,
as
opposed to anything else.
Yeah.
Which was, okay, it was an interesting look at more of like, I guess, a modern take on that type of personality, right? Yeah. Like, it might be a little bit too one-dimensional to have him just hate another individual than to have him kind of like self-loathing and a little bit more multi-dimensional that way.
Yeah, but what about the other characters, right? Like the love interest Anna, Michelle Williams, the human antagonist Drake, who also is... So, like,
everyone else kind of felt secondary to me.
Oh, they were,
in the point where they don't really matter. Like, even like the antagonistic characters, they felt very not mattering to me
because they weren't that focused on.
They weren't a big deal. They didn't really matter. The things that happened to them didn't matter. The only one that I cared about, other than Eddie Brock, basically, was Venom, and I thought they did a pretty good job with him. Like, I liked Venom's personality in this.
Yeah, but it fell victim to the same thing, right? Like, and it was almost the same with the love interest, right? It was just like, I love you, I don't love you, I love you, like flicking it on like a switch, and Venom's like, I want to destroy the world, and then I don't want to destroy the world, I do. Like, just, like, what reason do they have to change their opinions all the time so quickly, right? And that hurts it to me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if at least they showed, when they're of the one mentality. Like, Anna, she's not loving Eddie Brock right now, but they show, like, that she's torn about it.
Yeah.
But they don't, right? Like, she's just like, nope, I'm black and white, here, then here. And it's just like, I can't relate to these characters because they're checking things off, right? Like, it's we need a movie, we need a conflict. Let's throw a wrench into the love interest, right? Like, we're just going down the list and checking off like what we need, right?
Going from there, actually, as a segue, I know we talked about it like before we saw the movie, but like, how did we feel about like the conflict then? Like, the bad guy essentially in the movie against Venom.
Well, and this is what I was saying to Alex prior to the movie, right? It makes sense that one of the biggest conflicts would be Eddie and Venom because it's a dual personality. They want different things, in this version. So they're a little bit more attuned in other versions, but they want different things. But then you can't have fight scenes and conflict with just the two of them. So you need to throw in other characters just so you can put in those battle sequences. And that's where I feel it suffered, because you did all the development of the character for the conflict between Eddie and Venom, and then you just have like these tacked-in villains so that you can check off combat scene, CGI combat scene, right? Like,
yeah, it's more like these guys are bad, he doesn't like them, and they're gonna fight. And
Exactly,
that's
right?
pretty that's pretty much the entire plot of the movie. Like,
I mean, I saw a lot of it,
spoiler alert.
and a lot of the combat to me felt like a lot of self-preservation because like the symbiote was trying to survive against. And I mean, I know I mentioned before the movie like the government would be it. It wasn't the government. It was more, you know,
The Life Foundation,
right? Which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It still matches up, I guess, with an enemy for the symbiote because they want to study it and research it and manipulate it and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So it still falls in line with, I guess, my idea of like a government entity against like the symbiote who just wants to survive.
Kind of is.
So I mean, I didn't have, I guess, a huge problem with it. You know, a faceless entity fighting against the symbiote is fine with me.
There have been worse villains.
Yeah, there have been.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, right? Like,
Yeah.
the focus is kind of difficult when you're putting it on the dichotomy between the main character and the other half of the main character, and then you're not building up, you know, the other characters, the villains, to make that conflict feel more vital. Like, it was just like all of a sudden it's like, oh, we gotta stop him because he's gonna destroy the world. It's like, when did that happen? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
That was definitely very quick. Like,
that's what I'm talking about. The second half was very quick.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's less like a superhero movie where both the villain and the hero matter a lot, and it's more like some sort of sci-fi, like Alien Predator, where it's more that the characters matter and how they're going to survive matters, and the villain is there to kill them, I guess.
yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
we don't know.
Yeah.
So, what else can we talk about?
Can't think of too much. What did you think of the sound? I wasn't a huge fan of the music they were using.
I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter too much. I mean, it was fine. I don't think the soundtrack like detracted from it anyway. I did like that they kept some of the little things like, you know, Venom's weakness being like high frequency sound waves. And
Yeah,
stuff like
I
that.
mean-
Like, that's still, you know, a thing that they kept with the theme.
Yeah.
So that was fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, character story, plot,
Yeah.
or characters, plot, character. Yeah,
I think it's fine to just
Yeah.
wrap it up. Like, I don't know what else we can really say at this point. So, Alex, why don't you start us off?
Okay, I thought it was an overall fairly average movie. I liked Venom, just his attitude. I wasn't really a huge fan of too much else, but I did like some of the fight scenes that eventually got in there. I would say I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
I actually really liked the movie as much, and I'll say why. So, as a Venom movie,
Yes, you will say why.
If I'm thinking of comic book Venom, I didn't like it. It's a terrible movie, okay?
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking of just like my movie experience for going in, and especially like going in not expecting this to be anything at all, like just to be complete hot garbage, going in and actually like enjoying myself for an hour and a half, I had a great time watching the movie. It was what it is. Like it's basically like, okay, we took a character and we just kind of made a movie around it. Whatever.
Do you think a lot of the negative feedback was actually because they were expecting the Venom that we know by the lore?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
not actually the quality of the movie?
I actually think that's probably more of it. Like, I mean, whenever you have a comic book character, there's always a level of expectation based on like what comic book series you read, what previous movies or shows you watched. Like, everybody has their own idea of what, you know, like Superman, Spider-Man, Batman are gonna be like, right? So when you go to a movie like that and it's not the same as what you picture, it's gonna disappoint you.
Okay, so what is your score?
So I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Ooh.
And it's because I didn't have a problem with the pacing. I know you guys had a little bit more problem with the pacing than I did. And I really thought that the action and the story between Eddie Brock and Venom, as much as maybe the character names don't really matter, was really well done. And, you know, it left it open for a sequel, which is fine, like nothing wrong with that. We know it's gonna happen. But yeah, I enjoyed my hour and a half experience, and that's what I care about, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it really is a matter of expectation versus delivery. Like, if I was rating it as a Venom movie, I'd probably give it a lower score. But I'm with Alex, like a 6 out of 10. You know, like, you know, just a slightly above average movie. It's not the dumpster fire that I was expecting,
Yeah.
but it's not one that's like, I gotta go watch it again, right?
Yeah.
You know, I have a couple complaints. They're more like of my usual, you know, nitpicky complaints that I seem to always have, which I can get past. You know, like the symbol on his chest really doesn't make or break the movie. It just would have added a little bit to like the flavor of it.
Yep.
But you know, like I'm with you. I enjoyed my hour and a half in the theater. There was a couple of decent, you know, jokes between Venom and Eddie Brock and good action. CGI, while not a technical marvel, fit very well and it did what it needed to do. So, yeah, like if you're going in for a Venom movie, okay, yeah, maybe you would score it a 3. But if you can view it in a vacuum just as a cinematic experience, I'm 6 out of 10.
All right.
Cool.
Well, there we go.
So that's our review for Venom. If you saw it, if you refuse to see it, or maybe after our review decide that, you know, it might not be might not be a bad idea to go on a cheap like Tuesday to check it out, drop us a line in the comments. Let us know what you think. And until next time, live in the real world, play in a Pixel one.
We will eat both your arms and then both of your legs, and then we will eat your face right up your head. You will be this armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you? Rolling down the street like a turd in the wind.
What the hell are you?
We are Venom.
Oh, I have a parasite. Yeah. Name is Chen.
Hey, did you like that video? If you did, be sure to let us know by clicking the like button and leaving a comment. If you want to be first in line for any new content, be sure to subscribe to our channel and then hit up our Facebook page. The link's in the description below to see what's coming up next.